Sounds good. Mhm.
Test.
We got it to work. Awesome. Thank you. You ready to go? You ready to go? Good. Still morning, but feels like afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm David Dichter. For those who don't know, I'm the CEO of ATIA. And I am really excited to be here with some feedback. So I get the privilege of introducing several folks here today, but most important to me is being able to introduce the idea of kind of what is happening here. ATI, this is ATI's third year. Whoops. This is ATI's third year hosting the Prentke AAC Distinguished Lecture Award and awardee. And we're really proud and honored to really be part of something that's been going on for a very long time as part of ASHA in the past and now part of ATIA. And it's really cool that we were able to start this when we were doing a virtual event with Kevin Williams, and then moving on last year to Lance and now to Ashley, and you'll get to meet both of them and learn a little bit about them. So without a whole lot more to say, other than, sorry, forgetting one of the things I really want to say. For all of you who are part of the choir, our efforts combined are about helping folks with disabilities kind of have their independence, have their communication, have their ability to learn, having access to the world, independence at every level, and really moving forward. This is being streamed on YouTube today. This will be watched by thousands of people. And what's really important about this lecture is representation and being able to give some folks who are really important in the world just because of who they are, just like you and me, an opportunity to tell their personal story of how AAC fits into their life. Many of you work with folks who use AAC. Many of you work with folks with other disabilities who use other assistive technologies. This is important, really important. And I want to thank you for being here. And our virtual folks who are on virtually, thank you also for being here and enjoy this awesome set of presentations. I'd like to introduce Gail Van Tatenhove, who really helps us with the process of really selecting from a very large group of nominees for this award. So Gail.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you. It's lovely to see so many people in this room, and knowing also that so many people will be watching this virtually and then the recording as well. I've been involved with the Prentke lecture as the chairperson for 12 years. And it has been around for 26 years. And I know this could not be done without a wonderful committee. I want to acknowledge first off, those who have been who are currently part of the Prentke lecture committee. And because, I'm getting a bit older, I better write them down so I don't forget anybody. It's Angela Standridge. Yeah, thank you, Angela, from Texas. Amy Goldman, There's Amy in the back there. Thank you, Amy. Lori Geist. There's up front, Lori. Sarah Wild over there. All right. Thanks. As well as we have a number of dignitaries in our audience today as former recipients of the Edwin and Esther Prentke AAC Distinguished Lecture. That's the official long term. We of course have Lance up here who will be playing a role today. And I see Kevin Williams. So wave at Kevin. He's been a former recipient. Chris Klein is in our back there. I've seen throughout yesterday, I saw Tracy Rackensberger. She's also a former recipient. You folks know Tracy, and Faye Warren will be working, I know, at the exhibit hall today as well. So we're always honored that not only do we have a wonderful recipient this year, but we have former recipients who can introduce her and others in the audience who are cheering her on. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand this over to Dave.
Back to me. I forgot one thing. We have a little business, especially from the CEU world here. So we have speaker disclosures from Ashley, Gail, myself, and others who are speaking. So if you are somebody who gets ASHA CEUs, we need to say these things. And there is also a session disclosure. Do they go on the screen at all? Are they up there? There we go. You just have to read that really, really fast. Wait, what's next? And then these are our learning objectives for this session. And now you're all eligible for ASHA CEUs when we're all done this thing. Sorry. And next I'm supposed to, who am I supposed to introduce? Oh, I'm supposed to introduce you. So our sponsor for this award is PRC-Saltillo. And many of you know this company. I happen to know Dave Hirschberger for what feels like a pretty long time now, but not as long as some of you may have known him. And he's awesome just being Dave Hirschberger, but he's even more awesome for supporting this award and for really contributing to our field as a whole. So Dave, I didn't even embarrass you yet. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Coming to this lecture always brings back some great memories of Ed and Esther Prentke. Ed was a very determined and driven man, but he was also a very soft and gentle soul, and he was a great person to know. And it's really been an honor for me to have spent my career pursuing the dreams and aspirations that he put into motion. Ed, along with Barry Romick and Bruce Baker, were some of the greatest influencers in my life, and I appreciate that. With ATIA being the premier assistive technology conference, all of us are attached to assistive tech in some way. It might be a manufacturer like ourselves, it may be a researcher, clinician, teacher, maybe a family member or a consumer. But even though this is a technology conference, it's not about the technology, it's about the people who use it. And this is really what this lecture is about. It's a time for us to take a little break from seeing all the cool devices in the exhibit hall, from the great sessions that we're attending, and really focus on the individuals who use the technology, the reason we're here and do what we do. On behalf of PRC-Saltillo, I'd like to express my gratitude to David Dichter and to ATIA for providing the new home for, sorry, I knew this would be happening when I tried to talk, for being the new home for this award. It's been a real honor to be a part of this this event over the years. Some of the recipients I have known for many years, and others I meet for the first time at the presentation. And introducing this year's recipient is the one person who won the award last year, and that's Lance McLemore. Lance is a recipient that I've known for a number of years. He has a Bachelor of Arts in art and philosophy. He's an artist and a blogger, and he's a very important voice in the field of AAC. And all of you who were here last year can definitely attest to that. And with that, I'd like to introduce Lance McLemore.
Before I introduce the recipient of this year's Edwin and Esther Prentke AAC Distinguished Lecture, I want to briefly introduce myself. My name is Lance McLemore. I had the privilege of receiving the same honor last year at ATIA 2022. I was really surprised when I was told I was being nominated, and even more surprised that I actually won. In my mind, I didn't think I had accomplished enough to warrant receiving that honor. I don't know what in the world that nominating committee was thinking. But seriously, I was enormously appreciative. Just speaking for myself, sometimes it can feel like having a disability is just one challenge after another with no end in sight, and that it is a barrier to living life to the fullest. On my more cynical days, it can seem like the most you can hope for is to succeed in spite of a disability. However, one of the reasons why receiving this honor last year meant so much to me was because it showed me that it's possible to succeed because of my disability, not in spite of it. A disability doesn't have to be something akin to a ball and chain that must be laboriously carried around. It can be something that we use to our advantage, something that can open doors, and something which we can use to help improve the world. And I'm sure this year's recipient is doing just that. The 2023 recipient of the Edwin and Esther Prentke AAC Distinguished Lecture is Ashley Mohesky. Ashley has a bachelor's and a master's degree in counseling psychology from Angelo State University in San Angelo, Texas. It was during graduate school that Ashley conducted a research study that examined how potential clients who were seeking help for their mental health would perceive a therapist who uses a communication device, as it is very rare for an AAC user to be a mental health therapist. During Ashley's practicum, she worked with college students with various mental health struggles. Beyond her educational studies, Ashley has worked with school personnel on how to include students with disabilities in general education and with parents who have children that are in the beginning stages of their AAC journey. She has also presented to various groups, including the Special Education Department of San Angelo Independent School District, to the Doctor of Psychology faculty at Kansas City University about the importance of training future therapists with disabilities, as well as with the Southwestern Psychological Association Conference, presenting her research regarding how people perceive mental health therapists and AAC. As of August 2022, Ashley became a licensed mental health therapist in the state of Texas, and she hopes to work with the disability community, as well specializing in working with parents who have a child with a disability. Please join me in welcoming Ashley Mohesky.
Thank you, Lance, for the awesome introduction.
Guess
Hello.
I better check it.
As mentioned, my name is Ashley Mohesky. First, I want to thank the selection committee for choosing me for this year's Distinguished Lecturer Award. I also would like to thank my former SLP Debbie Martin for her nomination. I never thought I would receive a prestigious award for using AAC, but it's apparent that this was in God's plan for me. I was born with cerebral palsy, which mainly affects my ability to walk and talk. I am able to talk a little bit, but I can't have a full-blown verbal conversation. Ironically, I can say thank you really well. Every time I say it to someone who doesn't know me, they actually understand me. It blows my
Thank
mind
you.
each time. I weighed 2 pounds 10 ounces at birth and spent the
And then is
first
it
year
$3
of my
now?
life in and out of the hospital because of numerous health issues. During that time, I had multiple brain scans because of the severity of the brain damage. Each scan showed very little brain activity, and based on that, doctors predicted that I would either be a vegetable, which I don't even understand how someone can be compared to a vegetable because nobody likes them, or I would die. One day, a scan
Thank
showed
you.
more activity than previous ones, and it was the turning point where hope started to arise. God performed a miracle that day, and He hasn't stopped working since. Once I was healthy enough, I was placed in special education at 3 years old. My parents had some idea of my cognitive function because when my mom would blink at me, I would blink back at her. There is also a video of her asking me to show her 1 and 5 on my hand, and I did. So, those 2 things were indicators of how much cognitive awareness I had. However, because I didn't have a way to communicate, there was still a question of if I was intellectually disabled in some way. When I was in special ed, I had an amazing teacher who guided my mom along the way and helped her fight for me, and I believe this was the beginning of God orchestrating His steps for my future. One day at school someone said a joke, and I was the only student in the class who laughed. Because of that, it made my teacher realize that I was all there mentally, I just needed a way to communicate, which begins my AAC journey. For a brief period of time, I used the PEC system and just pointed to pictures of things I wanted before transitioning to technology. If you were in this field in the mid-90s, you probably remember the huge and bulky Dynavox, before Tobii and Dynavox merged. Well, that was my first communication device. When I was evaluated for a device, I was asked to spell a series of simple words, and when I spelled them all correctly, I blew everyone away. I even told my mom I loved her. However, the excitement didn't last long because when I received my own device, I thought I was smart enough at 4 years old to program it myself. Needless to say, I broke it and had to get a new one. Word of advice: if you're helping a child with their new device, watch them closely. Just saying. When we were testing out voices for my device, there was one that sounded like a demon. It scared me so much that I started crying. You can bet I stayed away from that voice and chose a much nicer one. Once everyone knew how smart I was and realized that I was never going to shut my mouth, I did half-day special ed and half-day in a first-grade general ed classroom just to see how I would do. When it was evident that I would do well in general ed, I completely transitioned out of special ed. In fact, before I started first grade, I taught myself how to read. Every school year I excelled and made excellent grades. However, one year my mom had a meeting with all of my teachers to discuss accommodations and all that stuff. Because no one ever had a disabled student in their class, my mom decided to break the ice with them. She told them that I hadn't cussed, bitten, or spit at anyone in weeks. Apparently one teacher took her seriously because she called my mom and said, "Miss Mohesky, Ashley is doing amazing in class. She hasn't done any of the things you mentioned." My mom was like I was kidding when I said that, but I am glad she's doing well. By the end of each school year, all my teachers ended up loving me and saw potential in me. After I graduated from high school, I attended my local community college to get my basics. I took 4 psychology classes and absolutely loved them. Little did I know that those classes were the foreshadow to my future. In August of 2014, I had a meeting with my vocational rehabilitation counselor to discuss the next steps. I left the meeting feeling defeated because I still didn't have any direction on what to do with my life. Of course, I am an intelligent person, but I am physically limited as to what I can do. I knew I wanted to help people, but I didn't know what that looked like. A few days later, God placed counseling on my heart. At first, I hated the idea because I don't like the way that vocational rehabilitation counseling is done in Texas, and I didn't want to be a part of that. Plus, I couldn't see myself as a counselor in any capacity. One day I started looking into mental health counseling as a whole, and I began to feel excited and knew that this was what God called me to do. So, I graduated with my associate's degree in general studies and transferred to Angelo State University, where I majored in psychology. During undergrad, I used my cell phone to communicate because I outgrew the Dynavox, and I wasn't a fan of using an iPad. So when I decided to become a therapist, I was very naive in thinking that I could provide effective therapy with the cell phone and that would be it. Towards the end of undergrad, I met with the program director of the counseling psychology graduate program to learn about it. During the meeting, he expressed concerns about my communication speed. While I didn't fully grasp his concern until later on because of my naiveness, I was still determined to make it work somehow. In May 2017, I trialed an eye gaze communication device called a GridPad from SmartBox, supplied by Improvability, in hopes of improving my speed. During the evaluation, I was horrible at eye gaze and thought it wasn't going to work. However, it was determined that once I practice more and more, it would work. After a few months of practicing, once I got my device, my speed dramatically improved. Unfortunately, I am not using eye gaze today because I didn't bring my power wheelchair, which is the correct mounting system that allows me to use eye gaze. In October 2017, I was accepted into the counseling psychology program and I received my device that December. When I was accepted into the program, I was the first nonverbal person to be in it. In fact, there were 2 professors who had been licensed psychologists for over 40 years, and they didn't know a nonverbal therapist. Because of that, I had to prove everyone wrong. Essentially, this was a learning experience for everyone. It wasn't just me learning about different therapeutic techniques and how to diagnose people. It went way beyond that. Thankfully, and this is also another one of God's orchestrated steps, the program director has personal and professional experience with interacting with people with cerebral palsy, one being a psychologist. While he did have his concerns, which I think went away once I got my device, he never told me that I couldn't be a therapist. His approach was let's figure this out one thing at a time, which was his whole demeanor throughout grad school. The other faculty members were more hesitant about me being a therapist. I don't agree with everything that was said to me or how they were said, but I do understand their hesitation. If I were in their shoes, I would be hesitant too. I actually think some of their comments helped me. I'll explain why in a second. Grad school was hard. Of course the classes were tough, but there were 2 other components that made it harder. On one hand, I felt like I had to prove everyone wrong because a student who uses a communication device in a counseling graduate program was unheard of. On the other hand, I had my own doubts because I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't have anyone to guide me. I knew other therapists with disabilities and they were helpful, but they could talk. I also had an amazing support system throughout my grad program, but again, they weren't in my situation. There were times when I wanted to quit, but God, my determination, and knowing that this is what I'm called to do helped me get through it. One of the concerns I had was how clients would perceive a therapist who uses a communication device. To somewhat ease my concern, the program director, another student, and I decided to do a research study that examined how participants would react to a nonverbal therapist. We recorded 2 videos of a mock therapy session. One video consisted of the other student using my device to do the mock session, and the other video was the student verbally speaking in the session. After participants watched the 2 videos, they answered a series of questions based on willingness to see a therapist who uses AAC, perceived therapeutic relationships, and if the therapist in the AAC video had a disability. To my surprise, the results were more positive than I thought they would be, which eased some of my concerns. Now, because the mock session and the AAC video was pre-recorded into my device and it wasn't in real time, there were still some concerns, but I at least had some idea of how potential clients would react to my device. We are in the process of getting the study published in a counseling journal, but I will say that my favorite part of the write-up is in the conclusion section where the main author wrote, "We hope that this research offers some hope to psychotherapists who have a disability and are interested in using AAC within psychotherapy, as it appears to enhance perceptions of the psychotherapist and the therapist's ability to have an alliance. Personally, I like to give hope to people when I can. So if this article gives one person hope that it is possible to use AAC as a mental health therapist, that's all that matters." I started practicum in the fall of 2020, which was interesting in itself, at my university's counseling center. A month before starting, I had an interview with the director of the counseling center to secure a placement. During the interview, I could tell he was nervous, which I don't fault him for that, and he asked me specific questions about my device and how it works, along with typical interview questions. By the end of the interview, he seemed to be easing up a little bit. He actually offered me the placement the same day, so it was apparent that he was willing to take a chance on me. When I accepted the offer, I remember thinking, "Do you see this device in front of me?" and realized that I won't be verbally speaking to clients. But I guess it didn't faze him as much as I thought it would. The cool part is that the interview was the only one I did. I was prepared to do a lot of them for different placements, but thankfully I didn't. After a few weeks of observing different therapists on how they did intakes, it was my turn. Of course I was nervous as any student therapist would be, but my situation made me more nervous. One day a student came in during my intake hour and as they're filling out the paperwork, I was trying to pump myself up. I did the intake and not once was the student put off by my device. When the intake was over, I scheduled the next session with the student and they came back. This process occurred repeatedly with other students and the majority of them didn't mind the device. Some of them did stop coming after a few sessions, but I can't attribute that to the device because clients drop out of therapy for a variety of reasons. However, there was one client who didn't want to see me because of my device. It was hurtful because I can't control the fact that I can't verbally speak and there's nothing I can do to change it. But I had to remind myself that not every client and therapist are going to work well together and that's okay. Ironically, this happened on a Friday, and the following Monday I had to record a video about resiliency by telling my story and send it to the entire campus, so if that doesn't say resiliency, I don't know what does. Like I said, I don't agree with all of the comments from the faculty of my grad program, but I do believe that the comments served their purpose. If I hadn't heard them, I probably would have been more hurt by the client not wanting to see me based on my device than I actually was. I think because I was quote-unquote prepared for the possibility of that happening, I handled it better. I was still sad, but it was going to happen at some point, and I'm glad it did during practicum. I will say that I saw a lot of clients during those 2 semesters and only one, that I'm aware of, was uncomfortable with my device. That's pretty good considering my situation. During my last month of practicum, I had to start preparing clients for the fact that I was leaving, and one client started tearing up. I also had another client who wanted to be friends after I left. Due to ethics, I had to respectfully decline and explain why. It's situations like these that make me realize that I can be a therapist who uses AAC. I graduated in May 2021 with my master's in counseling psychology. I will not be getting my doctorate in case you were wondering. I don't have the patience or energy for it. I ended up taking a year-long break after graduation, which I didn't plan on doing, but life happened. I took my licensing exam last February and passed on my first try. In August I became a licensed professional counselor associate receiving supervision, similar to a residency for doctors. It's funny, the director of the counseling center is now my clinical supervisor, so I pretty much came full circle. I don't say this to pat myself on the back, but I'm pretty sure that I am the only nonverbal therapist, just based on my research and the fact that I don't know any other nonverbal therapist. Representation is extremely important to the disability community, so if I can be the person I needed in grad school, I'm happy to do that. If someone who uses AAC wants to be a therapist sees this lecture or reads my research study, I hope they realize that this is possible and that it can be done. Beyond my education, I have worked with parents who have children just starting out on their AAC journey, as well as with general ed teachers on ways to include students with disabilities in their classrooms. I am going to switch gears and discuss how AAC and mental health intertwine with each other. I am going to talk about my own experiences, but I think a lot of people who use AAC can relate. One of my biggest pet peeves is when people don't take the time to listen to what I'm trying to say with my device. When this happens, I feel frustrated and I just want to scream. Obviously, I'm an adult, so I can't do that, so I have to take a step back for a second and calm down. As I stated earlier, I can talk a little bit. If I am trying to say something verbally and someone can understand me, I also feel frustrated and I have to remind myself that it's not their fault and they're trying, but it's still difficult. I think the frustration comes from the fact that my mind works a lot faster than my body and I can't communicate as fast as I want. If I didn't have any way to communicate whatsoever, it's probably likely that I would have meltdowns because that would be the only way to communicate, even though I know that it's not age appropriate. Imagine having something to say and not being able to express it. You would probably feel isolated. I try not to judge the reason for why someone who can't talk and doesn't have an alternative means of communication because I don't know their story. But it's heartbreaking when I see someone trying to talk and they can't get their point across. I'm a firm believer that everyone deserves a voice, no matter the means of communication. When you're constantly in your head because you can't express yourself, it can be mentally taxing. Thankfully, I've never been without a way to communicate, but when I'm having a hard time saying what I want to say, for whatever reason, my mental health is affected. Next time someone is having a hard time because they don't have a way to communicate, I encourage you to put yourself in their shoes and be patient. They're doing the best they can at the time. Recently I heard a mother who has a son with autism and can't speak say, "He's not giving a hard time, he's having a hard time." I thought that was really profound and felt like everyone needed that reminder, including me when I begin to feel frustrated because I can't communicate how I want to. Lastly, always presume competence when interacting with people who use AAC. By giving someone a voice and presuming that they are competent, you're helping them tremendously in their success, no matter what it may look like. I will end with this. AAC has made a tremendous positive impact on my life. There's a verse in the Bible that says you were born for such a time as this, and it solidifies the notion that God has a purpose for all of us. If I didn't receive my Dynavox in the mid-90s when technology was just starting to emerge, I probably wouldn't have done the things I did, nor would I be here today talking to you all or receiving this amazing award. As I stated earlier, I truly believe that everyone deserves a voice. I'm not going to say that everyone with a communication device is going to make huge strides in life, but by having a voice of their own, it's going to change their lives for the better. I hope you all enjoyed my lecture and feel free to ask me anything you like. My contact information is listed on the slide if you wish to get in touch with me. Thank you.
Sorry. This is an opportunity now. Ashley, thank you so much. Okay, I know lots of you have questions for Ashley, so we have time for a handful of questions. Gail and I are going to run around with a mic, and if you have a question you'd like to ask Ashley, and we have Becky running around with the mic. So, and we have why don't we start with a question, Sarah and Caroline, from our virtual attendees.
Thank you so much. And also, first of all, I'd like to give a big thank you to RearAdapt for the mounting device so Ashley could actually use the eye tracking. Thank you to RearAdapt. A last minute addition for those of you in the room. And also, I'd like to read out a very special message for Ashley from Debbie Martin, who is actually part of the virtual event. So she is listening in, has been hearing everything. And she's acknowledged herself. I'm the SRP who got Ashley her first AAC device and also who nominated her for the Prentke Lecturer Award. I am beyond proud of her and could cry just now. I so wish I was here in person, but I'm happy to be here on the virtual event to support her here. Woohoo. Thank you so much, Debbie. I'll pass it back to you, David.
All right, okay. Raise your hand, or if not, make a sound or yell out to us, or however you want to do it to get our attention. Who would like to ask some questions?
Hi, Ashley. Wow, that was awesome. Which is a silly word to say. Actually, is a really important, informational, and inspiring talk. So I really appreciate it. This question is probably too big, but I certainly, when I was doing my doctoral work, was with young people who speak with devices, through devices, and who needed mental health professionals. I happened to be at the same university where they taught wonderful people like you to be mental health professionals. I went into there to say, I'm not a mental health professional. I have some kids that need you to talk with you. And they said, well, we don't know how to do that. And I said, well, I'll help you. Absolutely nothing. I didn't get the door shut in my face, but I certainly didn't get my emails answered. If I was going to go back there today, and you know what, I think I will. When I go back there next week and knock on their doors, what would be words that from you I should tell them, or just words that you think I should tell them? I know, I'm sorry, that's a huge question. I know.
Everyone has mental health struggles. at school some point. So if they are needing services, they have the right to receive them. Despite the inability to speak. Everyone has mental health struggles at some point, so if they are needing services, they have the right to receive them despite the inability to speak.
Oh, we have someone on the virtual event that has a question or comment.
Actually, we have lots of great questions coming in privately and publicly on the chat, but this is a question from online. Ashley, what is one important thing I can do to encourage my young students who are AAC users to build their confidence and help them come to believe they can do anything they want? Sometimes they feel so discouraged.
3-1
It's not what I meant to do.
is going to have an opinion on everything. Someone does, but it doesn't matter.
So she doesn't have her
Because-
device today, so she's slow because she has to use her hands.
Are your own person who can do anything. They want it's just going to look differently. Everyone is going to have an opinion on everything someone does, but it doesn't matter because you are your own person who can do anything they want. It's just going to look differently.
And we have a question over here. Please say your name as well.
Hi, I'm Danielle. I'm an occupational therapist in AAC. That was so well said, everything that you said. And your fluency and speed is actually incredible because I tried eye gaze and it's not easy at all. It's very challenging. My question,
Yeah, I thought
oh
it
my
was.
gosh, this probably happens to you. What I was going to say was, I think being an AAC user, it slows us down as the recipient of your message, and you have to put a lot of time into what you say. And I wonder if people have ever expressed that that is actually a highlight of communicating with you, because it gives them process timing to really think through their response. And I think wait time is something that we forget about and it's very therapeutic. So have you ever been given that feedback?
I have been told it does and doesn't. Always help. Help. In grad school, I was
10 o'clock,
Told.
Josh, Emmy,
that
or 9:30, Josh and Emmy, 10
some
o'clock, Kobe and Camila.
clients may not want to wait for me to respond. But I was also told them to that good therapists don't take charge in talking. If that makes sense. I have been told it doesn't always help. In grad school, I was told that some clients may not want to wait for me to respond, but I was also told that good therapists don't take charge in talking, if that makes sense.
We have another question here, right? We have two more questions that we'll be able to have time for. We have one here and one here, both from communicators. Let's make sure I get this. Sorry.
Actually, I have two questions. I'll get my second master's degree in mental health counseling to become a mental health counselor and marriage and family therapist. What therapy modalities do you practice mostly? And my second question is, how much have you programmed on your speech device, like genetic questions, to use a springboard for sessions?
I am not practicing right now, but I do like C, B, T, and person centered. But I am sure that once I start seeing clients, I will have more of an idea of modalities. 2. Answer your second question. I only program responses for the intake session and then use the following sessions are in real time. I am not practicing right now, but I do like CBT and person-centered, but I am sure that once I start seeing clients, I will have more of an idea of modalities. To answer your second question, I only program responses for the intake session, and then the following sessions are in real time.
Thank you. We have one more question here. Where's your speaker? Yeah, go for it.
My name is LJ. I just want to say you were inspiring.
But thank you. Thanks, LJ. I think you speak for all of us. With that, a great last comment. I don't think I can end any better than that. I want to thank Dave and Gail and the whole committee. I want to thank Lance for just being here and coming out to Florida. You didn't get to come last year. And Ashley, did we get a plaque? Oh, we got a plaque to do. Here you go, Dave.
Ashley, thank you so much for your personal and wonderful presentation. Thanks for taking us on a journey through your life and letting us know some of the challenges you faced and how you overcame them. It's a real honor for me to present this plaque to you.
Ashley, will you be around a little while? We're kind of out in the lobby area here, so folks can come up and meet you and greet you. And I think there's probably lots of folks who'd like to have some further questions and comments so that we can put the wall back up in this room and we have sessions continuing. So if you'd like to spend some more time with Ashley, I think she'll be right out the door.
Actually, David, she'll probably stay in with the mount so she can still use her communication device.
Can we bring that with us? Yeah.
Okay.
So we can bring this back out with us. Anyway, thank you all for coming and thank you for supporting and enjoy the rest of ATIA. There's lots more going on.